Hey guys, back with another video. So this is a follow-up video for Chapter 10, Capitalization of Interest, follow-up to the first conceptual video. Now we're going to actually go through a specific example using specific and general debt. All right, and so I've just made some facts up. Some of these facts are a little bit more simplified than others, but the main point here is I'm just trying to basically do a laser-like focus on this one topic of how to do this calculation of specific and general debt when you have both in a problem. All right, so in this set of facts, we have specific debt given to us. It says it's $500,000, and these are 5% notes, notes payable of some sort. And then we have general debt of $2 million. It's 8% bonds. And then we also have $1 million of 10% notes, okay? And then you can just assume that these, pay annually or whatever the case may be, and they are outstanding for the entire year. Okay, that's also important. All right, all this debt is outstanding for the entire year, every single piece of it at the top. All right, so now we're just going to go ahead and assume that our weighted average cumulative expenditure is $2.5 million. Again, that's my abbreviation, WAAE. $2.5 million, that's just given to us. Okay, and again, that's given to us just to simplify this process of trying to calculate what we're after here is mainly solving for the blended rate is the hardest part, because once you've done that, the other calculations are relatively easy. But in the end, what we're trying to get here is avoidable interest. Okay, that's kind of the whole point of once we've done this weighted average cumulative expenditure, then we want to apply the correct rates to the right portions of weighted average cumulative expenditure. We're going to see that we're going to divide it up into two portions, and so we have to apply a certain interest rate to each portion of the WAAE. All right, so how do we do this? All right, so we see that our WAAE is 2.5 million, right? So what happens is that the first thing we do is we can say that we can capitalize, we can use this 5% rate for up to $500,000 of the weighted average accumulated expenditure. The reason that we can do that is because of the fact that we have $500,000 of specific debt. All right, so basically what we'll do is, what you want to do whenever you do these problems is you want to see what this weighted average cumulative expenditure number is, and you want to always be thinking, okay, I can only use this first specific debt rate up to the amount of the specific debt. All right, and so that's very important. After we've exceeded that specific debt amount, then we have to say whatever the balance is. In this case, it's 2 million, right? 2.5 million minus 500,000 will give us 2 million. That is all capitalized using these general debt rates, okay? And that's when we get into the blended rate. I have it written right here. We have to use the blended rate. Now, we don't know what that rate is yet. We're going to solve for that. That's part of this video, okay? That's the main point of this video. Other than solving for avoidable interest, we'll do the whole thing, but this is the hardest part, because once you have the rates, literally it's just taking 500,000 and 2 million and multiplying it by the rates, okay? The hardest part is this piece here and remembering this process, okay? It's a two-step process and just remembering how to do it. So basically, right, so the next step we want to do is once we've identified all that, we want to solve for the blended rate. And just quickly to refresh, our formula is the total interest payments that we would have over the total principal. All right, in this case, the principals are, 500,000, 2 million, and 1 million, just so that way we can keep that in mind. All right, and this total principal, this formula here, sorry, just so that way we're not confused, we're only going to use this 2 million and this 1 million because this is only for the general debt. The specific debt never uses this blended rate. I was just trying to point out that the 500,000 technically is called a principal, but it will not go into this bottom formula, the denominator of this formula, because this is only for the blended rate, which only uses general debt. Okay, so I hope that's clear. So then let's go ahead and jump into it. Okay, so total interest, how would we solve for interest? Okay, well, if we just want to look at the general debt, we would want to say $2 million, okay, multiplied by 8%. Right, because we'll just take the principal times the interest amount. That'll give us the interest payment. And then if we take 1 million over here, which is our notes, we multiply that by 0.1 because that would be 10%. Then we would, if we do this math out, we get 160,000 here, we get 100,000 here, okay, which is a total of 260,000. Right, so 160 plus 100 would be 260,000. In the denominator, we would have the total principal, right? So this is just 2 million plus 1 million. Obviously, I shortened it a little bit, but I think that's pretty clear to see, right? Total principal, 2 plus 1 equals 3. Then, to get this blended rate, the last step is just divide 260,000 by 3 million. And if we do that, we'll get 8.67%. All right, so now we have our blended rate and we have our specific debt rate. So the very last step here is just to go ahead and solve for the avoidable interest. Okay, so avoidable interest. How does this work? All right, well, again, we have two steps, 1 and 2. The first part, again, don't forget, we're only gonna go up to 500,000. And why are we going up to 500,000 only? Because we only have 500,000 of specific debt, right? Our weighted average cumulative expenditure is more than our specific debt, and so we have to stop at our specific debt. We cannot go any higher. And the rate to use there would be 5%. Okay, so if we multiply 500,000 times 5%, we'll end up with 25,000, and that's the first part. And then now we just have to set up the second part. Okay, second part, $2 million, because that would be 2.5 million minus 500,000. We would get 2 million. We would multiply that by the rate that we just solved for over here, 8.67%. And again, on the rounding, guys, generally speaking, the professor is either going to tell you straight up, like, round to this decimal place, or they're going to have at least some leniency a lot of the time on the rounding. Unless they tell you directly, like, round to this decimal place, then they might be kind of strict on it. But as long as they're telling you, like, what to do, just make sure you're following instructions. As long as you've done the problem correctly and you're pretty close, most of the time you're going to be okay with the rounding. As long as you didn't do something really weird with the rounding. I know one time the number was like 0.135 and they round that to like 0.15, and that was like just really weird. So don't do something like that, but just make sure that you're following directions and that you're doing it the way that you're told to. Finally, because you don't want to lose points for that. That's something that's really just not it's just a minor thing. It's just kind of stupid to lose points for that. And then so finally, the last thing is take the 2 million, multiply it by our blended rate. We get $173,400. We'll go ahead and add those up. We get 198.4. And this right here would be our avoidable interest. Okay? And so that's how we solve for avoidable interest. Obviously, I'm not going to run through this, but the last step would be to go ahead and say, okay, take the, actually, let's just go ahead and do it. Okay, let's go ahead and figure out our actual interest, because we have to capitalize the lower. We have a few more minutes, so let's just go ahead and do this. Okay, actual interest, okay, we have to do, basically, because of the fact that these are all outstanding for the entire year, okay, we have to basically, basically the way that we're going to solve for this, right, is we're just going to take the principal of each one, multiply it by the interest rate. Okay, we've already done that here, so I'm just going to copy those down. I'm not going to rewrite all that because there's really no need to. You guys can see the 160 is going there. This is for the first general debt. The second general debt is right here. That's the 100,000 there. Okay, so if we add up all of those, we would get 285,000, and this is actual, all right? And over here is avoidable. Okay, now we've solved for both. We capitalize the lower one. Which one's lower? Clearly, avoidable is lower. Okay, and then the very last thing is how much expense on the income statement. How much expense would we have on the income statement? Okay, well, that would basically be the actual amount that we had minus the amount that we capitalized, and then we would end up with 285 minus 198.4. 86.6 is going to be on the income statement. $86,600 on the income statement. Okay, I kind of added this at the end. I wasn't necessarily planning on doing that initially, but just to finish out the problem. The last thing to remember here, this is really big. I probably will mention it in another video, but basically what's going on here is that you're just solving for actual interest, right? So this calculation here, the one in the bottom right, is separate and apart from anything else we're doing within this topic. Right, I see a lot of students struggle with this when it's something that you know how to do. It's very basic. All you're doing is taking principal, multiplying it by interest rate, and then, if it's not outstanding for the entire year, you would have to weight it by a part of the year, right? But if it's outstanding for the entire year, like it is this time, technically within this, we're multiplying by 12 over 12, which is just 1, right, for the entire year. But don't forget, if it's not outstanding for the entire year, you have to do that as well, okay? And so that's basically it for this video, and look for more. Thank you.